Hey, what's going on everybody? Mark Aiello here, coming to you with another brand new video, and today, once again, we're going to be talking about storytelling. As I'm going to be doing, I guess you could say, a little series dissecting some previous works of mine, more so going into the storytelling, because I guess, I don't want to say I'm a storytelling expert, but some people will compliment me on my work, and one of the main recurring things that they say about me and the work that I do that they really love the most is the storytelling. And I guess I've always had a knack for that. I mean, granted, I did go to film school. I did learn the fundamentals and the basics of storytelling. But even prior to that, it's always been ingrained in me, and just, whether it was watching movies or reading books, I've always, I guess, had a good understanding for what makes a good story. And I think there's still plenty of work and improvement that I need to do as a filmmaker. I wouldn't say that I'm at the real expert level yet, but I think I've got a good specialty for it and a good eye for it, and what makes a good story and how to read people, and, what makes good plot, certain characters, how to dissect the best moments out of people, in terms of documentary. I guess I've just always had a good eye for that. And I wanted to be doing kind of like a little series of breakdowns of works of mine where I go into that and I kind of explain my process and my ideas, my thought processes rather, and how I just come up with the ideas that I do, and how I navigate certain settings and scenarios to really make a compelling story. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, what we want to see most in a film, or any piece of media for that matter, is a good story. I mean, we can see some of the best camera work, some of the best, vintage lenses being used, or the best visual editing effects, all things like that. Those are all cool, and I'm not knocking those. But I think in order to have a really compelling, really amazing piece, or work of art of any kind for that matter, is you need to start by having a good story told. And once again, I'm learning as I go along. So maybe as I'm looking back on the work and reflecting, I could think like what I could have done differently, what I could have done better. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope you're getting value out of this, and if you are, please consider subscribing. So for those of you who aren't quite familiar with me, I am a filmmaker who specializes in documentary-style content for individuals and brands, those that live on the edge, those that, whether it be through tattoos, motorcycles, fitness, or blue-collar work, I'm really interested in those adventurous, rugged types of people and stories. And for any business, large or small, I think brand awareness is usually a starting point in terms of a marketing strategy. And in terms of video, the best solution to that is a brand story video, a mini documentary telling your story, who you are, where you came from, and what makes you and your business so unique. However, I really like to push the limit on these brand stories. I am not interested in just making a generic company video with a talking head, person being interviewed, just having bulleted questions almost, or it just feels robotic and you have generic B-roll or whatever. I'm not knocking people who do that or by any means, but at the end of the day, I feel like as filmmakers, we are hired for not just our access to all this nice gear and our ability to shoot and edit, but we're hired out because we have an eye for storytelling. And I think that's ultimately what's most important. So I'm going to dive in here today and show you how I make my brand story pieces for clients epic. How to make a really awesome, badass, compelling mini documentary piece for a client. So I'm going to be looking back at a client of mine, Tommy Supplies. I did this brand story piece for them just over a year ago now, almost exactly a year ago, a little over that. So Tommy Supplies is a tattoo supply company based in Connecticut. They also have their own line of ink called Starbright Colors that they make in-house, and they are renowned across the country and around the world as one of the leading tattoo supply companies and hottest ink lines on the market. So I came across this brand, and I felt really compelled to reach out to them. I really wanted to work with them and create a really awesome piece for them. So I cold called them actually and said, hey, I want to collaborate with you. I want to do some awesome content with you. And I got in touch with Tom, the owner, and I tried to figure out what his needs were for content. And basically, he had said, I built up a good reputation in this business, but I kind of just want people to know who we are and have some brand awareness. So I said, okay, let's start with a brand story video. And so my goals for this piece were to, one, give him something that was useful and could give him the results that he needed from a marketing perspective. And two, just have a good film at the end of the day. Not just, like I said, not just a generic company video. For any project, that's really what I want to go full throttle in, is to provide a work of art for people. Now, I don't want to play off the sort of self-aggrandized artiste role, but again, we're hired out as filmmakers to deliver, but also be creative. So I'm always trying to push the needle on that. So on that note, let's get right into the breakdown and show you guys how I made this brand story epic. So prior to going into any production, I think it's important to have a talk with your client, whether you sit down with them or have a phone call with them at least once, and try and get a sense yourself right then and there of who they are and why they started the company. And especially when you're talking with the owner, they will very likely speak out of passion, because not only is this their job, but this is their livelihood. This is something that they put their entire life into, their blood, sweat, and tears into, and they will speak very passionately to you about their company and why it means so much to them. And when talking with these people, try and get a sense of who they are outside of work. You know, what are their hobbies? What do they enjoy? What's their behavior like? Are they extroverted? Are they more shy? What are certain habits theirs? Like, what makes them so unique? And I think showcasing that, especially from the beginning, is so important. And so that's kind of what I do here in the beginning, where I show Tom on the bike and, you know, riding up in the motorcycle. We already get a sense kind of who he is just by showing that. And then kind of going right into the history here. Because in this piece here, I'm really not just talking about what the company does, but who the people are behind it. I think having that mindset when approaching any brand story piece is crucial. And you'll find it'll already make it go far, I think, for the story's sake. I like doing these little vignettes here of the people when they're being interviewed as you hear them talk. So, very important component here is getting after the struggle. That's what I always try to emphasize in any story of mine that I'm telling is, what's the struggle here? What's the battle here that the person is going through? For any documentary, for any good story for that matter, you need to go after that. You can't just, it can't just showcase the people having a good time and business is great. Like, walk us through the challenges that came along the way. And I'm not just talking like, oh, we had to navigate through supply chain, or, you know, we had to budget this out or whatever. Like, don't go into logistics. Like, you'll be surprised how a lot of, especially small businesses, how when they start out, they're really struggling. Almost any business owner that I've seen has gone through some kind of rigor. And I think getting that out of people early on is, it adds to that sort of human side of who they are and what they do. And by showing that vulnerability, you kind of gain that trust from the audience. A little technical note here, I'm not too crazy about the color grade that I had here. I gotta be honest, I'm not really the best technically savvy filmmaker, I think. I'm just more focused and obsessed with the creativity of it that I lose sight on sometimes, like things like getting a good color grade or exposure, things like that. I'm learning as I go along. Trust me, I'm gonna get better, but looking back at this, had I made this now, I think I could have made a much better color grade. I was using this LUT that I found that I really thought was cool, but I should have done my research on how to set it right, particularly with like Sony footage, for instance. So just one little thing I wish maybe I had done a little differently on. I think that could have made it a little better. So back to the story here. When we have the characters struggle, and then later on we'll have their triumph, their success or whatever, we need to link that by having some sort of a solution. And that's accompanied by having this little sequence of flashy jump cuts to help kind of uplift and bring to that higher point of the character's journey, I guess I would put it. The music is so important too. Like, you know, earlier we had that sort of sentimental music to go through who the character was and the struggle, and now we're getting into an upbeat kind of montage. I will say though, this isn't ideal for a standard way of storytelling. Like typically this would kind of be the end here. The struggle, as I mentioned earlier, would kind of be more so from like the end of the beginning, or the very beginning all the way up to kind of like the end. That's typically what you would see in a traditional story. But since this piece is designed to show the company where they are now, more so than where they were in the beginning, I kept that part pretty short and made most of the piece centered around who they are, what they do now, essentially, and why they're so great. Yeah, and when you're following around your subjects for B-roll, try and be sort of fly on the wall, capture them in these moments where you see them really enjoying what they do. You know, we want to see not just what the company is and what they do, but again, who these people are and, you know, seeing them in their day-to-day. You need to get multiple voices, not just from the owner. You need to get important people in the company as well. And so that's what I did here. I got a few people on the staff involved telling their stories and what they enjoy about the team working there. I don't know if I'm a fan of looking back the backdrop I chose for this. I kind of just wanted the motorcycle in the background, and one where I had good control of lighting, and also one where, better yet, where the noise wasn't going to be a problem, where I wasn't going to hear any machinery running. So I chose this, but I just don't like seeing all these freaking pallets and stuff in the background. But I guess it works. It's fine. Just little subtle details that I look back on. I'm like, eh. I enjoyed this when he was talking about the ink and all the components of it, and it was really cool getting to see the process of how it was made. It's just so cool when you're looking at them doing all the mixing and doing all the packing and labeling for these inks that you're seeing. Like, you're looking at that, and that's going to go onto somebody's body. It's pretty cool when you think about it. I actually had to wear PPE going in there. Not so much the full gown stuff, but I had to wear a mask and a hairnet. Yeah, as always, get creative with your B-roll. I mean, it's good to capture, but get a little fun here and there as well. It was also helpful because I suggested to Tom, you know, when it comes to the ink especially, we should hear a customer voice. Because as Marcus Sheridan writes in his book, They Ask You Answer, you are not the hero of your story, but your customer is. And I think that's very important when making a piece like this. It's really important to get at least one, maybe two voices from customers of the business and hear their story and their experience with them. Yeah, this is cool. We got the ink mixer to come sit down. Him and Jamie here already have like a good vibe, and she convinced him to come sit down. That wasn't even planned. I wasn't even planning on talking with him, but it was nice that he got to sit down. And when you get your people, your characters to sit down and talk, whether they're being interviewed by themselves or if they have somebody with them, don't try to interject so much. Maybe just ask like a question to get them going, or say something to get them going, and just back off. Just like let it play out and see how they talk or how they respond to certain things. And when you do that, you'll get emotion, whether it's sadness or joy, or you may even get a laugh out of it. Yeah, so I'll throw in some B-roll sequences like here, and I'm doing that, one, because it's good eye candy to have, you know, cool money shots like that, and it helps add to that, like I was saying, that epicness of making a cool brand story here. But it's also good to have breathing room, as you may say, a beat, I think is actually the word in cinema, between the dialogue of the characters, it's good always, I think, to make your characters reflect on their journey and their success. So, I mean, I talked earlier about the importance of getting them to open up about their struggles and their journey along the way to where they are. And on that note, too, I think, you know, as people reflect back on their journey and their success, they want to have significance and they want to feel like they're leaving something behind, some impact on people. And that's universal. That's universal to anybody. And I always like to get that out of people when I'm talking to them is, you know, how do you see yourself leaving a mark behind? What do you want to tell people in that regard? And I think it's good to leave that off here, which I do. And now, after all that, I think a good closer is essential. And in this case, I get that from Jamie, where I simply just asked her, what does Starbright mean to her? And she said to her, it means change, and it's her life. And I thought that was just the perfect way to end the piece and go right into the epic money shot montage sequence. Now that I think I've shown the audience really who these people are, shown the characters through their struggle, showed their vulnerable side, and to showing their success now as a great company, I think now is a good time to kind of just highlight their glory, so to speak. Show all the badass, interesting parts of who they are, to really like end on a high note, and really like end with some flair. Showing all the intricacies of the brand and the product. And of course end with the motorcycle, because why not? And a jarring, jumpy, flash cut little sequence for a couple seconds as a chef's kiss, why not? In an ideal scenario, I think it's helpful to have some other hands on deck, whether you have an assistant camera or a gaffer or whoever. It's good to have some multiple bodies on set, even if it's like a super skeleton crew. But really making pieces like this, you can really do it all by yourself. I mean, I did it. And especially if you're working with a tighter budget, I'd say it's completely doable and possible. As long as you go in with the mindset that you're there to tell a good story, I think it's totally possible to make a great piece by yourself. So that's my breakdown on how I came to create this brand story for a really wonderful client, a really awesome, amazing company, such really awesome, salt-of-the-earth, genuine humans to be around. And along with that, how to make a brand story that is epic and has a compelling story. And highlighting everything I said, I think the takeaways are showcasing the struggle as well as the other components to what makes these people so unique, even outside of just the business. You know, showing who they are as people, what makes them so exciting and unique. You know, really getting into capturing just who they are as humans, finding the subtle details that make them so special. So I think that's going to do it for today for my little cinematic breakdown on how I created this piece. I hope you found some value in it. I hope you found it entertaining, useful, educational on your storytelling endeavors. And if you like the content here, please consider subscribing and you'll be able to stay posted for all content that I put out. So thank you all for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Take care. God bless.